Barnham. Oh, sorry, Keith. Who will be speaking on renewables and reducing electricity costs. Yeah.
Afternoon. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you today and to hear about all these wonderful renewable efforts that are going on in various countries. But what I want to get over in just a few minutes is some information, some very important information about the renewables that the government, the fossil fuel industry, and the nuclear industry don't want you to know. And I'm just reeling from the fact that it seems as though investors don't know it as well, all of this information. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion afterwards with the last speaker.
Je suis très heureux d'être ici pour discuter des renouvelables, de l'énergie renouvelable. Et en particulier, je voudrais vous donner des données qui ne sont pas dans les mains du public et qui sont donc très peu connues, mais qui sont très importantes pour pouvoir comprendre l'importance du secteur.
Okay. Right. A very important project was run in Germany in 2006. It's a CombiCraftwerk experiment where they proved that you could run the whole of the German grid on renewable energy. They didn't have much PV at that time in Germany, so they scaled down the actual electricity demand in Germany and then met it in real time from the actual output of PV generators, of wind and biogas, varying the biogas to compensate for the times when the wind wasn't blowing. What they found was that PV and wind together could supply 78% of the German power demand, and only 13% of backup by biogas was necessary, and only 5% of storage. That's the blue lines. This experiment, one of the things it does is to give targets that you need for wind, PV, and biogas for an all-renewable electricity supply. And what I'm going to first of all look at is how close we are in the UK and in Germany to that situation.
Le projet CombiCraftwerk a été un projet fondamental. Il a été commencé en 2006 et c'est basé sur entièrement renouvelable, les énergies renouvelables entièrement. Au cours de 2006, il a répondu à 1/10 de la demande d'électricité de l'Allemagne, avec une production en temps réel de générateurs solaires, éoliennes et biogaz. Le solaire et l'éolien peuvent à eux deux subvenir à 78% des besoins de la demande allemande. Et il n'a nécessité que 17% seulement d'électricité d'appoint au biogaz. Et seulement 5% de stockage a été nécessaire. Donc, CombiCraftwerk est la direction vraiment à suivre pour une Allemagne entièrement à l'énergie renouvelable et peut-être adaptée à la Grande-Bretagne.
So this is the first bit of good news that the government doesn't want you to know. They don't look at how PV and the other renewables are increasing in this way. This is the amount of PV power in these different countries with time, with year, and it's going up so fast, you have to put it on this very funny scale that you may never have seen before. 1 bar across here does not mean 1 more unit of power, it means 10 more, and that means 100 more. They're growing up very fast, what we call an exponential rise. As we all know, Germany has done extremely well, but late in the day, even the UK is rising as fast. Before the cuts, it was rising extremely fast as this technology did in the late 1990s, if people can remember. As fast as that, it was. So the government doesn't want you to know this because of the magnitude of the cuts they've introduced to try and stop this happening. Were we to follow Germany, we would hit this target here. That's the Kombi-Kraftwerk target that I just talked about for an all-renewable electricity supply, the PV target by 2020.
Donc ceci vraiment est ce que le gouvernement ici ne veut vraiment pas que vous sachiez, parce que si ce graphe était distribué partout, eh bien nous saurions qu'en fait il y a une croissance exponentielle extrêmement rapide, non pas par 1, mais par, vous voyez, par 10, c'est multiplié par 10, et maintenant on arrive, vous voyez le but, ce qui est arrivé, qui a été fait par le Kombi-Kraftwerk, et c'est vraiment extraordinaire, et c'est vraiment comparable à la technologie des smartphones, qui a été aussi en croissance exponentielle dans ces dernières années.
Thank you. Wind was rising not as fast, but very steadily, and would have hit the Kombi-Kraftwerk target had it not been for the cuts by its own Kombi-Kraftwerk target by 2022.
L'Allemagne atteindra sa cible pour les éoliennes en 2020, mais la Grande-Bretagne y arriverait en 2022 sans l'austérité budgétaire qui se passe en ce moment. Cela nécessite le genre d'appropriation locale dont le Danemark a été le pionnier.
This one is really exceptional. Offshore wind rising exponentially for a decade in the most inhospitable environment, very new technology, and yet it's increased exponentially like a much smaller technology that you could mass produce. In all cases, by the way, I didn't point out this line, all 3 of them separately dwarf the new reactor that we've just heard about at Hinkley Point by factors of 20 to 30, but even by 2020, 5 years before it's going to be built.
Alors ce graphe aussi, c'est quelque chose que le gouvernement ne voudrait pas vous montrer parce que ça prouve que, en ce qui concerne l'énergie éolienne en mer, vous voyez, ces chiffres montrent que, en fait, les buts atteints seront supérieurs et de beaucoup à la production d'électricité par la centrale nucléaire de Hinkley. Donc, bien qu'à grande échelle, dans des conditions difficiles, l'énergie éolienne en mer a aussi augmenté de façon exponentielle, de même que le solaire à une moins grande échelle, mais il y a un grand potentiel.
Right. Exponentially rising markets reduce wholesale prices. That's a fundamental fact of economics which a Tory government doesn't seem to understand. It has been, this is the most important slide I want to show you. Oh, sorry.
Can you stop? I'll just do a little bit. Ceci est aussi quelque chose de très très important, ce que le gouvernement ne veut vraiment pas vous montrer. Yeah,
thank you. So this is the price, the wholesale price of electricity, which the previous speaker said is falling. It's falling in the UK. I put on what's happening in Germany for the 2 markets in Germany at the current rate of pounds per euro. and they're following the same trend. The really important thing, Good Energy have done an analysis which shows that it is the renewables that are bringing this down. The price they quote, 3p per kilowatt hour for PV in 2014, is halfway below that famous grid parity argument we saw. So that's why I want to speak to talk to the last speaker afterwards. In practice, the market is operating in energy, and the wholesale price is coming down because of the amount of renewable energy in the UK, consistently with what's happening at higher proportion of renewables in Germany. They're consistent.
Donc, ce qui est très important ici, c'est que cette montée exponentielle du marché des énergies renouvelables a conduit à une baisse très importante des prix de gros, des prix de production d'énergie, ce qui fait qu'on est arrivé à 3 pence pour le kilowattheure. Et c'est quelque chose qui est très très important. Et c'est ce que Good Energy a démontré en 2014. Cette chute du prix de revient de l'énergie due aux renouvelables qui sont beaucoup moins chers maintenant.
Thank you. So what's going to happen next after these massive cuts, which the last speaker described, and they are absolutely massive. So I've added all the renewables together here, and business as usual would have taken them up there. This is what DEC, that's the Department of Energy and Climate Change, that's the government energy department, this is what they hope is going to happen in the future. And what it means is that there is some renewable expected up to 2020, and then a little bit more between 2020 and 2030. That is mainly offshore wind, they say. So they are hoping that PV and onshore wind will be dead by 2020. That a Tory government will have succeeded in killing two exponentially rising markets by their efforts. Now, I'm hoping all the people representing a lot of, the free co's of this world and Bath and West Energies and the Bristol Cooperative and Bristol Council, I've got great faith that this is utterly crazy, completely crazy, and we won't let them. We'll regard this as a challenge to beat that. And I really think investment will carry on, because what investors don't like is uncertainty. There's no uncertainty anymore. There's no uncertainty about what will happen to the subsidy. It's zero. There's no uncertainty. We produce electricity at the lowest fossil fuel price, and it will continue to remain low because we've got no fuel. And there's an awful lot of enthusiasm in these groups. Sorry.
Alors, ce qui est très important ici, c'est de voir cette ligne bleue qui montre effectivement les prédictions du gouvernement qui veut vraiment tuer l'énergie du renouvelable en Grande-Bretagne. Donc, selon leurs prédictions, les éoliennes et puis les PV vont arrêter de produire. Mais, en fait, comme l'un des facteurs de difficulté est l'incertitude par rapport aux subventions, comme on va savoir qu'il n'y a plus de subventions, ça va en fait régler ce problème d'incertitude, puisque ça sera une situation stable, et ça veut dire que l'investissement va pouvoir recommencer, puisqu'on sait où on en est avec ce gouvernement. Et ce qui est important, c'est donc pour toutes ces coopératives, pour Freeco, pour Froome, pour tous ces mouvements dont nous avons entendu parler aujourd'hui, de vraiment être très très actifs, parce que ça va être très important pour eux de jouer un rôle fondamental dans un changement de politique.
So what the final slide that I'll show you on what might happen in the future has two projections for how they might rise. That is, I'll take the DEC's most pessimistic, their lowest figure for the rise, and I'll take this one here, which is assuming that since they're emitting some support for offshore wind, it will rise at the worst rate in the last 10 years. The worst yearly rate will continue for the next 10 years. For the last 10 years will continue. That's my assumption. For PV and wind, I'm assuming, let's make a pessimistic assumption that it'll rise at half the worst rate from the last 10 years. So this is all based on what's been done in the past and the worst that's been done in the past, and maybe that's what they'll achieve.
Donc vous voyez dans les trois lignes vertes, vous avez pour le PV, pour les photovoltaïques, pour l'éolien et le biogaz, vous avez le status quo, l'année la plus basse et les estimations les plus pessimistes. Mais selon, si on compare ce qui s'est passé, ce qui va se passer dans le futur à ce qui s'est passé, on peut prédire une continuation de 50% de cette montée dans les énergies renouvelables. Donc, ça va être très important quand même.
Okay, so this is the final slide. It's a bit complicated, so hang on in there with me. It is by year, the wholesale electricity price. Mostly according to DEC. DEC have got a number of scenarios, of course. They don't know what's going to happen in the future. But here's their lowest scenario. They accept that the price is falling at the moment, but they think it'll rise. This is their lowest rise. There's this one here, of course, which is higher. This is the rise that assumes that it's all due, this rise is all due to the fossil fuel. They think it'll go back up again at some stage. So, and remember, fossil fuel and nuclear are the government's favoured technologies. And you can see why they hope it's going to rise for fossil fuels, because somehow we've got to justify this price, which is what they've guaranteed against all the best conservative principles, market principles, a fixed market price, a completely crazy economics. That is guaranteed up there, and the catch, of course, is that we will pay that price, or we will pay the difference between that and the wholesale price. So what they're hoping is that we won't notice paying that much subsidy. But if, look at this broken line here, that's assuming the expansion continues as DEC thinks. That's hardly anything. Assuming that, but there is an expansion of the renewables, and then using what Germany and the UK have already shown happens as you increase the amount of renewable energy on your grid, then the price will definitely go down, so we'll end up paying that much. But if, remember that pessimistic projection I had, that's this dotted line here. Going through the German prices, because that's what it's based on. These are the prices Germany has achieved already at the same stage in its renewable expansion. And what we are all going to be responsible for is that difference. 7p out of the 9p of Hinkley Point C. This is why I think they're having second thoughts. One of the main reasons they're having second thoughts at Hinkley Point. But the important point here, I think, is the certainty that it should give investors in renewable energy that we're going to be able to come in below the competition. We're below the fossil fuels that the government favours, and clearly well below nuclear. So please, investors, come and invest in it because it's clear you'll be able to sell it. These people won't be able to sell. They won't be able to sell. And that's why why EDF are having second or third foot thoughts.
Ça, c'est très important aussi. Vous voyez que la ligne bleue qui est la plus haute, c'est celle qui prédit que l'électricité sera produite uniquement à partir de charbon, de pétrole et puis du nucléaire. Donc, c'est la stratégie du gouvernement. Ils veulent absolument monter les prix au maximum. Et donc, vous voyez les autres lignes en pointillé, c'est quand même assez haut, c'est beaucoup plus haut. Et même la ligne la plus conservative en tiret en bas vous montre que le prix de gros de l'électricité qui utilise les moyens de production traditionnels sont beaucoup plus élevés que les prix de l'électricité produite par des moyens renouvelables. Donc, vous voyez les petites croix rouges, ce sont les taux le prix de gros d'électricité déjà atteint en Allemagne. Et donc, c'est pas difficile. Il faut qu'il y ait des investisseurs qui viennent investir dans l'énergie renouvelable et puis contribuer à changer complètement le paysage de la production d'électricité en Grande-Bretagne.
So my conclusions, had it not been for the cuts, the UK could have reached the wind and PV required for an all-renewable electricity supply by 2020. The cost fall is consistent between the UK and Germany. It's a fraction of the amount of renewable on the grid. The aim of the cuts, what the government wants to do, was to make space for more expensive and, of course, higher carbon gas and nuclear. But even on my pessimistic assumption, 7p out of the 9p nuclear costs for each kilowatt hour would be paid for out of the fossil price. My final point, not down here, is I think this is a great opportunity for the community energy projects, for the local authorities and for the others. Things can't get any worse, and we've got a product that is cheaper and will remain cheaper than the competition.
Alors, ma conclusion, c'est que le solaire et l'éolien vont permettre à l'Allemagne d'atteindre ses objectifs d'électricité 100% renouvelable en 2020, sans les compressions budgétaires qui viennent de se passer. La Grande-Bretagne aurait pu y arriver en 2022, mais car la baisse du prix de gros de l'électricité est consistante avec la part du marché des énergies renouvelables. Mais effectivement, la suppression des subventions pour le solaire et l'éolien vise à faire place au nucléaire et au gaz qui sont coûteux et émetteurs de carbone. Et naturellement, les prix que nous avons pour le pétrole ne vont pas durer. En 2025, l'hypothèse pessimiste prédit que les payeurs de factures financeront le coût du nucléaire et on arrivera à 7 ou 9 pence par kilowattheure, ce qui est bien supérieur au coût de 3 pence par kilowattheure qui nous avait été démontré plus tôt.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I don't know whether to feel depressed or elated. I'm going to feel elated. We're going to do it. We've run out of time. So what I suggest you do is nab a speaker over the next half hour or so informally if you have a burning question. And I'd like to encourage you to come to tomorrow's conference, where hopefully technology won't let us down. And lastly, I'd like to really thank all our speakers for giving such an amazing insight into the energy industry in Europe. Thank you. And can all the continental delegates leave their headsets and receivers on the table over there? Thank you. Don't they know that?